Welcome to this week's iClass given by Rabbi Mendy Loewenthal from Chabad of South Kensington. There are many that have a beautiful custom to study the Mishnah Ethics of the Fathers during the summer months. This particular tractate of Mishnah teaches us moral ethics that are for the most part beyond the letter of the law. This week we will look at Mishnah 6 from chapter 5. Okay. 10 things were created at twilight on Shabbat Eve. The chapter started off listing various different tens, and this Mishnah is telling us 10 things that were created at twilight Friday afternoon. Here is the list. Number 1, the mouth of the earth. Number 2, the mouth of Miriam's well. Number 3, the mouth of Balaam's ass. Number 4, the rainbow, etc. And it goes on to list 10 things. What are these 10 things? The mouth of Miriam's well. While the Jewish people were in the desert, they had a special well that traveled with them. It was a miracle. They had water to drink. The mouth of Balaam's ass. The Torah tells us of a Gentile prophet who once had a startling conversation with his donkey. Donkeys don't normally talk, but this one did. Hashem created this talking donkey's mouth just as the Shabbat was coming in on the first Shabbat at the end of the 6 days of creation. In the 16th century, there was a great rabbi that lived in the city of Prague. His name was Rabbi Lau. Today he is known as the Maharal. He was famous as a great and courageous leader and authored many works on the Torah. One of the books that he wrote was called Derech Chaim. This book is a commentary on the Mishnah Ethics of the Fathers. Looking inside this book, we can see that his comments are somewhat in-depth. He gives practical explanations to the sometimes quizzical teachings of Ethics of the Fathers, and often explains things in a mystical way. His comments on this particular Mishnah, of the 10 things created at twilight, span a good few columns. He discusses many questions, including miracles, and the idea that even though Hashem created the world, and Hashem can later on then go and change things around a bit, making a miracle, nevertheless Hashem doesn't really do anything new, because Hashem programmed every miracle into existence during the 6 days of creation. For example, when Hashem originally created the sea, He programmed into it that it would split or could split later on when the time would come during the Exodus. The Maharal notes that this list of 10 things is made up from specific things that were part of some sort of miracle, but at the same time could not have been programmed in during the 6 days of creation because they are not normal creations. Not all donkeys were going to speak, just the prophet Balaam's donkey, so he therefore needs to have a special time to make Balaam's donkey's mouth that it should be able to speak. He then goes on to speak about the beautiful spirituality of the Shabbat. Shabbat is a holy day, a day of rest. It is a day when everything is a little bit more divine. A miracle is when the divine, or holy, manifests itself in something physical. The Maharal explains that the most appropriate time to create these miraculous things, a talking donkey's mouth, a stone that would pour water forth for the Jewish people in the desert, the best time would be just as the Shabbat is coming in, because at that time there is so much more spirituality. That is the bridge between the weekday and the Shabbat. Okay, the Mishnah continues its list of things created twilight Friday afternoon, just before the Shabbat. And at the end, the Mishnah says, some say also the burial place of Moses and the ram of our father Abraham's, and some also say the spirits of destruction as well as the original tongues, for tongues are made with tongues. Tongues. Here is an image of tongues. Tongues are used to hold things while they are on the fire. For example, a hot dog on a barbecue. Somewhere outside London there is a Saxon village. It is a model village of how life used to be in the Anglo-Saxon times. They had model people doing things that they used to do. It makes a very pleasant Sunday day trip. One of the exhibits is an old blacksmith. The blacksmith takes iron and he holds it in the fire using tongs until the metal is soft. Then he takes the metal out of the fire and holds it firmly in place using tongs. And he bashes the metal into shape with a hammer. Anyway, so that is tongs. Now how do we make tongs? Well, we take tongs and hold a chunk of metal in the fire and eventually bash the metal into shape until you have a new pair of tongs. So in order to make tongs, you need to have tongs. The question, who made the original tongs? Our Mishnah says that the original tongs were made on Friday just before Shabbat. In 1977, the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave a talk discussing this Mishnah and the above quoted comment from the Maharal. And the Rebbe asked a few questions, quoting various parts of the Talmud, earlier commentaries and later commentaries. And it's a long discussion. One of the questions that the Rebbe asks was about the tongues in the last line of the Mishnah. The Mishnah just gave a list of miraculous things, or 10 miraculous things, that were created just as Shabbat was coming in on the first Shabbat of creation. And then at the end of the Mishnah, it says that tongues were also created then. The Rebbe asks, what is so spiritual about tongues? Are tongues ethical? Do tongues have an ethical message? Why is Ethics of the Fathers teaching us about tongues? Okay, so here is a short piece from the Talmud. Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis taught, Adam nivra bi'erev Shabbat u'mipnei ma. Why was man created on Friday? Hashem created the world in 6 days. Why did He make us people on Friday? Why did He not make us on Sunday or Monday? Maybe we would prefer to be created first and not last. So the Talmud gives a few answers. One of them goes like this. The Talmud says, don't feel bad that man was created last. We were created last because we are special. Imagine, you have a king or queen who makes a big dinner. First they prepare all the food and lay it out on the table, and then they bring in their special guest. Hashem created the whole world. Only once everything was ready, then He made man. The commentaries explain that on a deeper level, man was created to perfect the world, to work on the world. Hashem set out our work ready for us, and then He brought us into the picture. Life is a show, a theatrical display. First Hashem set up the props, and then He brought in the stars. We have a mission in life. We are the heroes, the stars of the show. Okay, now we get back to the tongues. In life, there are big things and little things. In our work, our family, there's big jobs and there's little jobs. There are important things, and then there are things that need to get done, but no one wants to do them. Tongues represent the little things in life. The Mishnah is telling us that Hashem values the little things. He values them so much that He Himself went out and created the original tongues Himself. Shabbat Shalom.